Hey guys, and welcome back to our Learn C++ programming tutorial series. This video is going to be part two to what we did last week, which was focused on learning the definitions and how functions work. Today we're going to dive in and start programming just a very simple calculator. I'm not going to edit out as much of the dead space time as I normally would. The reason for that is I want you guys to see what happens when I run into an error and how I try to resolve those errors. And I also want you to see where I forget how something works. I know this is going to happen with CIN at some point when we go to take user input. And so I want you to see how I'll pull up resources and look through that to try to figure out how exactly I'm going to put things together. So with that said, let's dive right in. So the first piece I want to pull up here is, this is kind of the idea of what I'm thinking right here. Simple calculator starts out by prompting the user to enter something into the terminal. They put in whatever calculation that they want to put in and press enter. It's going to give a little calculating sentence here to let them know that it's processing, although this is going to happen almost immediately, but I think it looks cleaner with this little calculating piece in here. And then we're going to print out whatever they put in plus the equal sign and whatever the answer to that is. We're going to have to handle a couple of special cases. So, for example, if they try to divide by 0, we should print an error message that lets them know that division by 0 is undefined. If they try to type in, something other than two operands and a single operator, then we want to print back out that is not the proper format that the program is looking for. So we'll get to see a little bit of error handling here. We'll get to see how the functions work. We'll get to see how user input works and how to parse that, as well as some more work with strings. So I think this is going to be a fun project. So we're going to start off with our include IO stream. This is the stream that allows us to do input and output from the terminal. I know that we're going to need our strings in order to save the data. We're going to have multiple functions. So we're going to work with doubles. That way they can do items that have decimal places as well. So we'll do double, and we're going to have 4 functions. So we're going to have addition, and we're not going to define that just yet. We're going to have subtraction, we're going to have multiplication, and we're going to have division. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's start defining these functions. And so each of these is going to take 2 numbers that are going to be doubles. And let's copy that because we know all of these are going to have the same thing. Okay, and I'm just going to spread these out a little bit. That way I've got some space to work with. And I like to add some comments. It's probably not necessary here. I just like to have lots of comments throughout my program to, again, give me a reminder of what exactly my functions and things do. So with addition, it's pretty easy. We're going to create a double sum, and we're going to set that equal to num1 plus num2. And then we're just going to return sum. Pretty straightforward. For subtraction, we're going to create a double, just call it output. We're going to set that equal to num1 minus num2. And then we're going to return output. Right? Multiplication, again, fairly simple. We're going to do output is equal to num1 times num2. And we're going to return the output. And then here, so with this one, remember that with division, dividing by 0 is undefined. So we want to think about what do we do if that happens. Now, we're probably going to handle that outside of this function, but just to be safe, I'm going to put in a kind of a catch here to ensure that numbers don't accidentally get passed to this one when they shouldn't be. So if num2 is equal to 0, so what this does is this if statement says if the second number that's entered, this is our divisor, right? Our dividend. Dividend, is that the right term for it? This is our second number in our division. If that is equal to 0, then we're not even going to calculate, we're just going to return 0. Else, we're going to go ahead and say double output. Really, yeah, let's double output is equal to num1 divided by num2. And we're going to return the output. Okay, so now we have all of our parts put together here as far as each of our functions. So we have here our return type is a double, the name of our function, the two parameters that we're going to be taking into the function, and then whatever we want to do and returning it. So let's go ahead and do a quick test on each of these functions just to make sure they operate as intended. So we need to create our main function here that tells us where to enter the program. And within main, let's go ahead and make two doubles. Double, we'll call this input 1, double input 2. All right, and now we can set these equal to whatever we want to set them equal to, so that way we can test our numbers. So let's just try 10 and 5. And at this point, let's have 1, 2, 3. Let's have 4 output. So we'll have add output, sub output, mult output, and divide div output. And these are all going to be doubles. And now let's actually call our functions. So I want to set add output equal to, and then I'm going to call my addition function, and I'm going to pass the two numbers, input 1 and input 2, as my parameters. I misspelled it. See? I misspelled input as input. So, okay, input 1, input 2, addition, there we go. And we'll do the same thing for each of our additional pieces. Nope. So subtraction, and it's going to take input 1, input 2. Mult output is going to be equal to multiplication, input 1, input 2, and division output is going to be equal to division input 1, input 2. Perfect. So what should happen here is it's going to take these two numbers and it's going to assign these values to be each of their respective functions that we wrote at the top here. And then we just want to go ahead and print the results. So we're going to do standard COUT results standard and line. And we'll just do add results in quotes. With a space. We're going to add output. So, and let me go back and correct this. And this is why I said, doing some error correction, and I want you to see this. It's actually, technically, we should be doing camel case for these. And what I mean by that is, what am I doing? What I mean by that is, anytime you're naming a variable, if you have multiple words within the name of your variable, the first word should be lowercase, and then the remaining of them should be uppercase. Now, it'll still work if you do it this way, but in reality, it's good programming practice not to do everything in camel case. It's good programming practice. It makes things a little bit easier to read. It's easier for you to, as a coder, looking through your code and see this is a variable and not the name of a function or not the name of a class or something else. So it is good practice to do all of your variables in camel case. semicolon, and lowercase. All right, perfect. So we're going to have add, subtract results, multiply results, and division results. Perfect. So what that should do is then whenever we compile this code, it should do 10 plus 5, 10 minus 5, 10 times 5, and 10 divided by 5, and print the results for each of those. So let's go ahead and run this program just to make sure that that works properly. So just as we did before, you're going to want to navigate to the folder where everything's at, which mine is in misspelled the folder. There we go. So I named my C++ file simple calculator. Obviously, you can name it whatever you want. Just remember that you always want to try and be descriptive of what exactly the program does whenever you name it. So we're going to do G++. We're going to do dash capital W all. And we're going to do our simple calculator.cpp. Okay, and we now have our a.out program. Let's go ahead and run that. And perfect. So are the results what we expected? Well, 10 plus 5 is 15, so that's correct. Sub result, 10 minus 5 is 5, that's correct. Multiplication result, 50, 10 times 5 is 50, that's correct. Division result, 10 divided by 5 is 2, so that is correct. So now this is a part of error testing. We want to start thinking of ways that we could mess this up. So let's try a negative number. Let's try -1 times 5. And just test with that. And so I'm going to run the compiler again and see what we get. So now we have -1 plus 5 is 4, that's correct. -1 times 5, sorry, subtraction. -1 minus 5 is -6, that's correct. Multiplication, -1 times times 5 is -5, that's correct. And -1 divided by 5 is -0.2, so that is correct. And what's great here is this gave us a decimal answer, so we can see that our decimals appear to be working correctly. Let's try another one. Let's try changing. Let's do a really. Let's not do that. Let's do 100 and 0. So let's see if our division here works. Right now, again, remember we didn't error check. All we did is this should return a result of 0 whenever we try to divide by 0. Oh, and save the file and then compile. And here we go. So 100 plus 0 is 0. Subtraction, 100 minus 0 is 0, that's right. Multiplication times 0 is 0, division, and it just prints out 0 since we cannot divide by 0. Perfect. All right, so it appears that our functions are working as expected. So now let's go ahead and start handling some user input. So a couple of things we want to do first is let's take a look here. So we want to prompt the user to enter two numbers separated by the operator. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. I'm going to do standard COUT and put that whole thing in parentheses. And then I'm going to do standard end line to move to the next line. That seems weird. That should work. Let's go ahead and, not that. Let's see if it compiles. Oh, so see here. So I entered this string that I wanted to have it output. Part of the problem is I'm using double quotes within this string. And so when I did that, it actually thinks quit should be a variable or something between two separated strings. So the way we fix that is, I believe it's / maybe. Oh, might be \. There we go. So if you want to print a double quote within a quoted string, you need to do \ and then the character. And there's a couple characters that you do that with. I believe null is one of the other characters that you need to do that with. The end line character \n. For example, if I want to print out \n, right? Well, I actually need to do \n. Or something along those lines. I can't 100% remember. I'm pretty sure that's it. And let's do this. All this should do is print this particular sentence out to the terminal. And I'm actually going to clear this. A.out. Perfect. It's a little bigger. So it does print out what I want it to print out. The next thing I want to do is standard CIN. So CIN is the input string from the user. So COUT is our output string. This is stream. This is what we want to put out to the terminal. CIN is we want to get something from the user. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and do CIN We're going to create a standard string. We're going to call it input. Okay. And so notice that the arrows are going in the opposite direction, right? So in this one, we're pushing this data into COUT or out to the terminal. With here, we have our symbols going the other direction. We're actually taking something that is from the user and we're pushing it into our input. And just to make sure that that prints properly, let's go ahead and do standard COUT input. and we'll just print our input to the screen. Perfect. There we go. So I type in test, I hit enter, it prints out test. So now our input string holds whatever the user has entered into the line above. So the next thing we want to do, and it's good practice here. Let's go ahead and let's declare our input string up here, because we're going to have some other variables. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and work through this string input character by character. So we know that we're going to have multiple pieces to this, right? So this is assuming we've gotten correct input, and we'll do some error handling a little bit later on. But the first thing we want to do is make sure, go through and assuming we got correct input. So we're going to need a double operand 1. And we're going to need another double. We're going to need a, we're going to need a character. Operator, right? So our operator is going to, I think operator is a keyword. Yeah, operator is a keyword. So we'll just call it op, right? So we've got operand 1, operand 2, and then we've got op for the operation that we want to perform, whether it's a plus sign, a minus sign, division sign, multiplication sign. So let's go ahead, let's create a while loop. So while the input is not empty. So a while loop is designed to run while this statement inside of here is true. So we've done some if statements. I think this is our first while statement. So we've done if something happens, right? If something happens, then it performs. With a while, it will continue to run the code that is inside of the while loop until this no longer evaluates as true. So we're going to use strings empty function. What strings empty function does is it checks and sees, is there anything left in the string? If there is something left in the string, I'm going to run the code again. Once it gets to the end of the while loop, it's going to come back to the beginning of the code. It's going to check the condition again. If the string is empty, it's going to return true. If the string is not empty, it's going to return false. This exclamation mark here says we want to do the opposite. So in other words, we want this to run as long as the string is not empty. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm explaining this in a weird way, but I think it makes sense. So if the string is empty, then we don't want to run this anymore. If the string is not empty, then we want to continue to run it. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and parse the input string. So let's do if so let's go ahead, we'll grab the first character in the string. So what the front function does is it returns essentially it tells you what the very first character of the string is. So you can see here front well, I can't move it. So you can see it returns a character, the character. So it's going to give you the first character of the string, whatever's at the front of the string. And we want to check if that character is equal to each of our operators, right? So in this stage of this, I'm going to check for each of our operators as the next character. So plus, minus, divide, multiply. Ooh, I just thought of a problem here. So if we're checking for minus, well, what if we want to be able to input negative numbers? Huh. Okay, so let's handle that. So let's start off, we'll come back to this. Let's start off by thinking about our input doubles, right? So again, assuming that we're working with numbers. So if our front input.front is equal to is less than, greater than, and I'm actually going to, this is why I wanted to do this with very little editing, as I want to show you. I'm going to pull up the ASCII table, because remember that characters within a C++ program do show up on an ASCII table. So we'll just type in C++ ASCII. Here we go. So notice that the decimal value 0 through 9 actually relate to different characters than the actual characters 0 through 9. So if 0 through 9 do not have, if we want to check if this is a number first, then we actually need to check if it's greater than or equal to 48, which is the decimal value, or less than or equal to 57. So that is one way we could do it with with integers, we could also do, so if this character is greater than or equal to, and in single quotes, 0, or, sorry, and we want to be in between these, and input dot front is less than or equal to, and we'll do characters 9. Right? Then we're going to do some code in here. We're going to check next character. You know what? We're making this too difficult. Let's do it this way. Forget that, forget that, forget that. What we're going to do is, so we're going to take CIN operand 1. So what that's going to do is pull the first double. Up. So what this should do is from our input, it should pull our first operand, our operator, and then our operand. So let's just run a quick test to see if that works. Let's make sure we do some standard inline. All right, let's just see if this does what I think it's going to do. Sure, I saved it. Let's do 4 plus 3. Perfect. It appears to be doing what we wanted it to do. Let me just fix that so that way it's prettier. Five minus 7, or 4 minus 7. Perfect. Let's run the program again, and let's do -5 divided by 0. And it picks up -5, picks up divide, picks up 0. Let's try it with a, I didn't mean to compile again. Let's try it with a decimal point. So 45.7 times 53, or 54.9. Perfect. Okay, so we now are grabbing our input properly, right? So why does this work? So with CN, it's actually built into the operator. It'll ignore white space, and it will pull whatever input was there that matches the type of variable that you're trying to save to. So here we have operand 1 and operand 2 are doubles. So it's going to look at the input and it's going to pull the next double or item that would fit a double's characteristics that it sees. So numbers with a decimal point, as long as it's not separated by white space. So for example, if I did 45 space 777, it's going to pull the 45, and then at that point it's actually going to give us an error because it's going to try and save, or it's not going to give us an error, it's going to try and save that 777 as the operator, which would save it as a character, so it's only going to pull the 7 and then operand 2. So let's run that so you can see what happens. So runs it again. Please enter 2 numbers. So let's add 45 space 790. So what we should have is we're going to end up with operand 1 being 45, op being 7, and operand 2 being 90. Yep, 45, 7, 90. Now, obviously, that's not what we want. We're expecting good input from the user. So now let's go ahead and perform the operations, and we're going to do that using a switch case function. So let's create another double, and we're going to call it answer. So this is going to be the answer to our problem that gets put in. And we're going to create a switch. So, oh, perfect. This fills it right out. So this is the syntax. So essentially what it does is that you put switch and then the expression that you want to use. This is going to be what's going to allow you to choose which code runs based on what the input is. Right? So our expression is actually going to be op. And then each of our cases here are going to be our operators. And the syntax for this is the case and then your colon at the end. And then what you do with break is break tells it, I don't want to run any more potential cases, because it is possible to have something that would actually run a couple of sets of these cases. Would run a couple of these different cases in one go. So in this scenario, we only wanted to run one of these items. And what default is it does not match any of the cases, meaning that it did not reach any of these. In that scenario, what we want to do is we want to print out, so standard COUT, we're going to put out invalid operator. Invalid operator. This way, this will help us with checking for our invalid input from the user, right? So the next thing we want to do, so under case, the first time we do this, we want to go ahead and do addition, operand 1 operand 2, just like in our test case, and we actually want to save that value to our answer, right? So answer is going to be equal to the addition of operand 1 and operand 2. And we're going to do similarly for the other scenarios here. So perfect. So the switch statement will take our operator. It'll decide, is it one of our approved operators? If it is, it will perform that function and save it to our answer. If it is not one of these, then it will not perform the function and it will break out of this switch. Okay, so the next piece that we want to do is we want to go ahead and print the results for the user. So we are going to go ahead and standard COUT. And let's take a look at our example, what we were going for. So we want to go ahead and do calculating, right? So first thing we need to do is do an end line so that way we can put a space. So end line just means move to the next line. And then we want to put calculating and then another end line to move to the next line. And I believe we want to have a white space. So we're actually going to do it twice. And then let's go ahead and standard COUT. So we want to print operand 1. We want to print a space. We want to print our operator, which is just op. Print another space. Operand 2. Print a space and then equals. And how do we want to do this? Yeah, we'll put another space. So space equals space. And then we'll print our answer. And then we're going to end line. And we're going to end line twice so that way we skip a space. Just like that. Perfect. So this should calculating and then print out our answer. So let's go ahead, let's save this, and let's try to run it. So let's do 5 plus 3. 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. Perfect, that's exactly what we wanted. Let's try each of these. So let's do 5 minus 3 is equal to 2. Perfect, that's what we wanted. I don't know why I'm doing that again. Let's do 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is equal to 15. Now, another thing I want you to notice too, look how I did this with spaces, and I did it without spaces. Remember that the CIN will ignore the white space whenever it's loading items into a variable, when it's matching the variable type in the way that we did it. So here I was able to put no white space, and it still knew to separate these as doubles and a character. And let's just do division just to give it a try. 5 divided by 3, and we get the answer 1.66667. All right, so that portion works. Let's see, the program should just print 0 if we try to divide by 0. Let's try it. And yes, okay, so that is working. Now in reality, we don't even want it to reach that portion. So what we can do is, before we perform the operation, we can check a couple of things. We're going to if op, actually, let's handle that. So what we do is, so this is inside of our case. So inside of the situation where we've got an operator and it is division, if operand 2 is equal to 0, then we actually want to go ahead and print a message, right? And that message is going to be right here. So error division by 0 is undefined. So then we'll do an end line, and we're going to do an end line again. And the reason I'm doing end line is, end line twice is, so once I end line, immediately what it'll do is it'll go to the very next line, but I want to have some space between here to kind of separate out. And so that's when I do end line twice, it tells us give us a blank line before printing whatever it's going to print next. That's just a personal preference thing. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing that for this because I feel like it makes it look a little bit cleaner. And then we are going to use our else statement. So as long as it's not equal to 0, meaning it's equal to anything other than 0, then we're going to run our division function. So now we have successfully checked for it being 0. Okay. the other thing we want to do, if you notice in our original message, is we have type quit to exit, right? So what we want to do is here's what we'll do. So op is a character, right? Because op is a character, we can just run this if statement. If somebody were to type quit into the, well, let's test it. Let's see what it does, right? Okay, so we get invalid operator. None of these work. There's a whole bunch of mess, but that means we know that op has saved something. So we don't even need an if statement. Let's go ahead and make an additional case for op called Q, right? That's what it should be holding if they type quit, because that's it would get a character. Operand isn't equal to anything. Operand 2 isn't equal to anything, but op should actually pull Q for a character. I believe. I can be wrong here, so don't hold me to this. If that happens, then we want to go ahead and just break from this. And we're going to do something more than this, but I'm just doing this for now, just to test this. I can't remember exactly how this works. So it must be pulling Q. So these are the so operand 1 ends up being 0. We end up with an answer. We don't have a function performed. Operator's space. I think it's pulling all of How do we want to do this? So let's go ahead, we'll comment all of that out for now. And I just want to see what the value of op is. Whenever I type in quit. Just like that. Yeah, I'm not worried. So op ends up empty. So I think what's happening is it never finds a double. So it never finds a double. So with the way that we're doing it, we're going to have to change this a little bit. So here's what we're going to do. So instead of having type quit and being able to quit at any time in the program, what we'll do is we'll have the program, it will have them enter it'll have them enter whatever operation they want to do. At the very end of this, we'll prompt the user to let us know would you like to run again? And we'll just say yes, no. Okay. And what we'll do is we will create a variable here. I'm going to put this up higher, and you'll see for a second, in a moment, why I'm doing that. Character continue. I'll just call it character cont because continue is a keyword. So character cont is equal to, let's actually do, call it character run. Character run is equal to, we're going to make it equal to y. Okay. So what we're doing is we're telling the user we want them to put in yes or no as to whether they would like to continue running the program. Standard COUT, would you like to run again? Yes, no. End line. Now we can just go ahead and take this and we will save this value to our run variable, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this entire thing in a while loop. And it's going to run while y is still equal to, or while run is still equal to y. So I want all of this not all of that up there, just all of this. I want to indent all of that. Perfect. So now it will run our program. It'll update everything. And then at the very end, it'll ask if you'd like to run it again. If yes, then it will run again. If no, it'll come back to run this. It'll see that run is not equal to y, meaning it's n, or they typed something other than that. And it should exit the program. Control save. Let's go ahead and do that. Please enter two numbers separated by the operator. Let's do 5 plus 3. There we go. And I do want to make a change just for making it look pretty. Okay, so one thing I noticed is it still does a calculation whenever we're dividing by 0. I want to actually skip that for our printout statement. Again, just to make things prettier. So I'm going to do if operand 2 is equal to 0. We're going to indent all of that. Does not equal 0. Sorry. Does not equal 0. So if as long as operand 2 does not equal, no, that's not what we want to do. No, that's not correct. If our operand is equal to division and operand 2 is equal to 0, so as long as both of these are true, this will run. So this is not what we want. We want to do nothing if that happens, else we want to do the following. Just like that. There we go. Perfect. So we get our error message, error division by 0 is undefined, and then it doesn't print out a bunch of stuff and it just tells you to start over. Right? So it tells you to try again. And I think that's going to be it for this video. I think this was a fun little project. It was a good refresher for me. I forgot a few things with CIN and got to run into some complications along the way. So just to recap from the very top, do we ever even actually use a string? I don't think we do. So we can actually remove this string because it's unnecessary. So from the very top, we have our functions that we have put together. We put those together outside of main. And then within main, our entryway to the program, we come through our char run. We have a run variable. We have our while loop that will run while this character variable is equal to y. We have our operands. We have our answer, our variables that we've defined. We ask the user to give us an operation to perform. The user inputs that. We take those and save those to our values. We use our switch statement to decide how we're going to handle those values. We have an unnecessary case here that we can go ahead and get rid of. See, this is stuff, this is all cleanup. And then if the user decides to divide by 0, well, we already handle giving them a message here. And we do want them to go ahead and try entering it again. Maybe it was just a typo. Otherwise, we go ahead, we run the calculation, print it out for them, and then we ask them if they have any more that they would like to run. So I think that's going to do it for our functions video. I appreciate you stopping by. Please let me know if you like this type of format, and or if you'd rather me do something that's a little more organized as far as the coding. I like doing this. This live coding, kind of watching, figuring it out, but ultimately I'm trying to make content that's going to help you to be better programmers. So if there's a different way you'd like this run, please let me know. And that's going to be it. So thanks again, and I will see you next time.